Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the information session on the Equal Representation in Construction Apprenticeship Grant Program. My name is Adele Burns, and I am the acting chief here at the Division of Apprenticeship Standards. And we are very excited today to be sharing more information with you all about this ERICA grant and the round 2 of this ERICA grant. So in today's session, I'm going to be giving you an introduction and an overview of the ERICA grant. And we are very excited today to also be announcing that we will be using the CORD grant management system for this application process. So we have updated our website today with a bunch of resources around this, and we're sharing all of this information here with you today. And we are joined by Michelle Yoon from the CORD team, who's going to give you all an introduction to the CORD platform and show you how to apply for this grant using that platform. And then finally, we will be providing responses to all of the questions that were submitted to us by the deadline of January 31st about this grant. We will not have any live Q&A in this session, but we do have the Q&A function enabled in this webinar. So if you have questions that you feel are not addressed by this session, you're welcome to put your questions in the Q&A, and we will do our best to try to get those answered. And of course, as with all questions related to a grant, once the solicitation is open, we always answer all questions publicly. And so any questions received and answers provided are going to be provided through that Q&A, which we're providing the initial set of responses here today, and we'll do our best to address any additional questions by the deadline. So with that, I'm going to dive into the overview of the ERICA grant. So we are very excited to be opening up this round 2. In this round 2 of the ERICA grant, we are making $13 million total available, and this will be over the program years of 2025 to 2027. So that is the performance period, and I'll share more on the specific timeline with that later. The overarching goal of this grant is really to improve representation in construction trades apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeships. And there are 3 categories to this grant. The first category is recruitment. Second category is childcare. These are very similar to what was in the first round of the ERICA grant. And we have a new category of funding, which is the worksite culture funding. So I will dive into each of these categories of the funding here today. So first, looking at the recruitment category of the funding, really this recruitment is intended to bolster outreach to women, non-binary, and underserved populations that are to really try to spark interest in those groups to join the building and construction industry. And so here are a bunch of the different allowable uses of the funds and activities that we expect to be funded under this category of the grant. So developing marketing materials such as videos, images, different infographics that are specifically oriented towards marketing to women and non-binary individuals, inviting them into these construction careers, developing different recruitment strategies to attract folks into those pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs, potentially targeting career counselors at high schools or community colleges, specifically to provide that information, updating website content to be more inclusive and crafting those messages, attendance at career fairs, perhaps career fairs that are oriented towards women, and the ability to have, different tools and simulators to have that sort of hands-on experience in those career fairs, crafting regional networking, and also targeting outreach and networking with contractors and employers to address any concerns they might have around hiring women, non-binary, and underserved populations. So these are the different activities. The total amount of funding in this category, you can request between 100 and 500K for this category of the funding. The next category of the funding is childcare funding. So this is really intended to support with childcare for participants in DAS registered apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeship programs. And the total amount that you're able to apply for in this category is calculated based on the number of participants that you plan to serve through the grant. And specifically, the dollar amount is $5,000 per pre-apprentice and $10,000 per apprentice per year. And I really encourage you to utilize in the application materials to utilize that calculation to make sure that the total amount of funding that you're requesting in this category aligns to this. So the number of participants that you're serving times these dollar amounts is the total amount of funding that you're eligible to apply for in this category of the grant. And the eligible participants, so the eligible recipients of the childcare funding, are apprentices and pre-apprentices that are parents or legal guardians of children under the age of 13, or to dependent children with disabilities requiring documented specific care needs. And overarching, all eligible participants must have a demonstrated need for childcare services. So I encourage you to dive into the solicitation for proposals to look at all of the different, there's like different models of providing this childcare funding and different like eligible costs under each category. So I encourage you to dive into those details there. But overarching, regardless of the structure of the funding, this is the framing of the eligible participants. And I will just note that this is a slight adjustment from round one of the funding. So please do note that there's a change in the age of the children down to age 13. It was age 18 before. And we've also this time included dependent children with disabilities who might be over age 13. But again, there needs to be a demonstrated specific care need for that category. So the total dollar amount range for this is $200,000 to $1.5 million for this category of the funding. So this is the third and newest category of funding under the ERICA grant. And this certainly, I think, in the overall goal to try to improve representation in the building trades, I think we recognize that the outreach and to some extent the childcare funding is trying to attract more representation into the building trades, and this worksite culture is really trying to address retention of these underrepresented populations in the building trades. And the intent is for this funding to really go towards mentoring, community building, and mental health supports for apprentices, along with training for really everybody on a work site, right? Whether that be an apprentice, journey workers, contractors, managers, all the folks on a work site, to really be providing training and support for creating a more supported work environment, addressing mental health concerns, addressing anti-harassment and anti-discrimination training. So that's the overarching goal of this category. So activities under that include recruiting and training mentors to support women, non-binary, and underserved populations, mental health supports for apprentices, and that anti-harassment, anti-discrimination, and worksite culture training for really everybody on the worksite, and potentially also offering template worksite culture norms and processes to offer to employers and to programs. A very important note about this is that this funding cannot be used to cover the cost for otherwise state or federally mandated trainings. So the total dollar amount in this category of funding is $100,000 to $500,000. And So those are our three categories of the funding. In terms of eligible applicants to the ERICA grant, we are looking for organizations that support equal representation in the construction workforce, and that could include nonprofits, community-based organizations, local education agencies, workforce boards, unions, and of course, state-registered construction, apprenticeship, and pre-apprenticeship program sponsors. And we're really looking for a background in this overall effort, right? So we're looking for entities that have operated at least 2 pre-apprentice or apprentice cohorts focusing on equity and inclusion of underserved populations over the past 4 years, or those who have marketed, recruited, or advocated for women in state-registered construction, pre-apprenticeship, and apprenticeship programs. And I'll speak more about it in a moment, but of course, the round 1 ERICA grantees should be reporting how their efforts to date fit into this, right? And how have they helped to move the needle in terms of representation. So overarching, important for all applicants to this funding is that all applicants must either already be or must already be a DAS registered apprenticeship or pre-apprenticeship or be in collaboration with one. And so this, if the primary applicant is not the DAS registered apprenticeship or pre-apprenticeship program, you need to indicate in the application materials who are your partners that do fulfill this requirement, and you need a letter of support validating that partnership with one of these programs, because we do want to make sure that we are providing all of these supports via our registered programs. So the overarching proposal requirements is that applicants to childcare funding must also apply for recruitment funding. We want to make sure that we're not just offering these childcare funds, but also building awareness of this program and these supports available to apprentices, so that we're really inviting in these broader populations and also offering these childcare supportive resources. So a single applicant can absolutely apply to multiple categories of the funding. We'll get into this in a moment with CORD, but you do need to submit a separate proposal for each category of the funding. And however, if you are applying for the childcare funding, you must also apply for the recruitment funding, and those proposals will be considered together. Entities that have received the first round of the ERICA funding for any category are only eligible for this round of the ERICA grant if they passed their annual review as of December 31st, 2024. So that is the requirement around the, excuse me, the repeat, the folks who are applying to the next round. And certainly the first round of the ERICA grants, the performance period is through June 30th of this year. So the intent of this round 2 is for those who have performed to be able to continue those positive activities in the ecosystem through this grant. So the funding structure of this grant is that we are going to be providing 25% of the total grant amount will be paid upon receipt and approval of the first month narrative progress report. And so that report will be due 1 month after the contracted start date of the grant. And then from there forward, there will be quarterly reimbursements thereafter, after an approved quarterly progress report. And that will be the reimbursement of actual costs, which of course cannot commence until there is a fully executed contract. So the idea with this structure of the funding is that the awardees will be able to receive 25% of the funding initially, and then reimburse quarterly. And the final 25% of the grant will be reported, but not reimbursed, because the first 25% was paid in that initial period. So we hope that this structure of the funding allows for that flow of funding to be able to run these different activities and these different programs, especially the childcare funding. So that is the overall structure of the funding. We are asking that, excuse me. So we are asking folks to please submit a notice of intent to apply. It really is just helpful to us to understand the level of demand and interest we have in this next round of the ERICA grant. And it really, really helps us in the reviewing and evaluating process if we know the number, if we have a good estimate of the number of folks intending to apply for this grant. So it is not required, but it is a request that if you are planning to apply for this grant, please email us. And in your email, please provide your organization name and the category of funding that you're intending to submit a proposal for. And if you could put intent to imply in the email subject line, that just helps us. And please send this email to DAS Grant Unit at dir.ca.gov by February 21st. Again, you don't have to submit this. It's just helpful to us. So we request that you please submit that email just to give us a sense of whether you're planning to apply. And an intent to apply doesn't commit you to applying. It's just a helpful indicator for us so that we can have an efficient evaluation process. So the estimated timeline that we have on this grant, we opened up the solicitation for proposals on January 13th. So all of those materials were on our website as of January 13th. January 31st was the last date to email questions to us. We are here on February 13th doing this informational webinar. We're requesting that you please submit your notice of intent by February 21st. We will be posting on our website all of the questions and answers that we're able to address. We will respond to all of the questions that we received by that January 31st deadline, and we'll do our best to address any additional questions that come in today. And we will post all of that on our website by February 28th so that you all have the information you need so that you can submit those final proposals by March 12th. So that is the most important date for you to come away from this session, which is by March 12th at 12 p.m. Pacific time. Please have those proposals submitted. We aim to have our estimated project start date is by June 30th of 2025. And then the end of the grant performance period will be June 30th of 2027. So the actual on this will be based on the actual contracts that we get executed and the execution date of your particular contract if you are awarded. But our overarching estimated timeline for this grant performance is roughly June 30th, 2025 to June 30th of 2027. So it's a 2-year performance period on the grant. All right, so one resource that we wanted to just offer to you, this is by no means a requirement, but this is just a resource that we wanted to offer. So applicants to this grant may wish to partner with alternative payment programs. So these are programs that are already funded by the California Department of Social Services, and they are entities that have already been set up and are operating to offer moderate income parents and guardians access to a bunch of the state and federal funding programs that offer, even more supportive services than the ERICA grant does, particularly to parents exiting CalWORK. So that's sort of the intent of these entities that were set up, but they are, because they're already equipped to administer funding much like the childcare funding in the ERICA grants, we wanted to just make you aware of these as available partners. They typically ask for a 10% administration fee, which is in alignment with the requirements of the ERICA grant, certainly. And they already administer state-funded childcare vouchers, and so this could be like an additional thing that they offer. And they also have the benefit that they can also, in addition, offer case management to potentially connect and enroll those caregivers into other state and federally funded programs that they may be eligible for. So, of course, again, no requirement to work with these partners. We just wanted to make you aware of them. And if you're interested, you can contact your local APP to discuss potential collaboration. And there are links in here, but also in our solicitation for proposals, we offer the links to those entities so that you can connect with them if this is something you would like to do, if it helps you administer the program. So again, just a set of resources we wanted to offer to applicants. So with that, I am very happy to hand the microphone over to our partners with CORD. And again, we have updated our website today with all of these resources around CORD. So with this, I will hand the mic over. Michelle, take it over.
Awesome, thank you. My name is Michelle Yoon. I'll be covering the technical portions of CORD registration and how to access the application. So next slide. Before anything, you'll be required to register as a user on CORD. The website or platform is going to be www.cordhub.org. And we ask that you use the latest versions of Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge. If you use any other browsers, you may hit some issues, so please make sure you're using, again, the latest versions of Chrome or Edge. If you have an account, which is possible, if you have used CORD before, you can go ahead and sign in. If you forgot your password, you are able to do that from the login page by clicking on Forgot Password. If this is the very first time you access CORD, you will have to create an account, and there's some minimal information that we ask to get you started. First of all, the very first thing is the business organizational email address. We ask that if you do have an organizational or business email address ending in your organizational domain or URL, to please use that instead of a personal email address. This makes it a lot easier on our end to make sure that we're approving any users that fall under the same organization. So that's one of the fields that we collect to create an account, and then first and last name, and then a password that you want to use for your user account. Once you create your user account, you will have to link it to a specific business or organization. So the very first time you log in, you will be asked to select the organization that you belong to. So there's two ways to do this. The very first option is to search our database. We have a database of some organizations that may have expressed interest in applying to previous grant opportunities. So the very first thing that we ask you to do is to check our database, just type in your name, see if you are already in our system. If you do not see your organization, you can search by full name or acronym. Go ahead and click on New Organization. When you click on this, you will get a pop-up and we'll ask you some fields about your organization, such as the full legal name, the type of organization, as well as the authorized domain if you have it. Again, this field, the authorized domain, is going to be very important because it will allow us to approve accounts for your organization quicker. So for example, let's say you have a dir.ca.gov email address. That may not apply to you, but I'm just going to use it as an example. You want to go ahead and use that email and include that URL when you're creating in your organization. So every user account that registers under that organization will be more quickly approved and be added to the correct organization. So again, if you have it, please add it. If not, don't worry about it. You can just skip that field. We'll on the back end make sure you get added to the correct organization. Once you are registered, your user account is linked to the correct organization, you're ready to go. So next slide, you can go ahead and start an application. So you'll see on the menu an item called Networks. And again, this is once you are registered, logged in, you'll see something called Networks. You can go ahead and click on that menu item and you'll see something called My Applications. And once you're on that page, you can click on Start New Application, and then you will see the ERICA program listed under listed on that page. Please make sure that as you start working on the application, you fill out all the sections and required fields, and make sure you upload all the attachments before you submit your application. If you submit, first of all, I think if you don't fill out a required field, you will get a pop-up message. But if you submit an application and you need us to revert it, you may have to start from scratch. So please make sure that you complete the full application, you double check everything is correct, you have everything included before you click submit. Next slide. You can reference the SFP for the details on the different portions of the application, what you'll be required to include in the application, but we wanted to spend a moment just to talk about section 9, which is the attachment section of the application. This is where you will upload some of the files, and we do have templates for the ones that are listed here. So I know many of you probably are not logged into Cord yet, but these links should work for you today if you want to have those templates ready to go, or if you have specific people that need to help you fill those out. So that's going to be Exhibit E, the budget narrative, Exhibit F, the budget summary, as well as the STD Form 204. Those are also available to download in the actual platform, but we are making these available for download now in case, again, you need to refer those specific attachments for somebody else to fill out. Next slide. I think I'm almost done. Just some quick best practices. First of all, please make sure that you create your Cord account as soon as possible. Especially if you want to do this at least a week prior to the application deadline, that will make sure that you have access to the application and you don't have any hiccups or technical issues to access the platform. So that's the very first thing we're asking all of you to do, to please make sure to go into Cord, create your account, and make sure you're linked to the correct organization. Please be familiarized with all the application requirements. All the details are going to be in the SFP. And then we also have informational sections in the application. So just make sure you're very familiar with everything that is required. One suggestion we have is to gather the materials beforehand. Once you're ready to start writing down your responses, that will just make the process a lot easier. And one suggestion that we have is if you prefer working on a Word doc, you can go ahead. There's a printable version of the application that you can just copy and paste into Word and just draft the responses. However, you do need to submit all your responses on the platform. So once you're ready to go, if you just want to copy and paste into the field, you can go ahead and do that. But that's just optional if you happen to prefer working on a Word doc. Pay attention to any field that has an asterisk. Those are required fields. And also pay attention to any conditional questions. So conditional questions are going to be questions that you will only get if you, depending on your previous selection. So for example, one of the things that you'll notice is if you do apply for childcare, there's going to be a section, an additional section for you to fill out. So again, pay attention to conditional questions. Make sure you're making the correct selection so you get the right fields to fill out. And the very last thing, save your progress as you go. There's going to be a save button. You don't have to, you can wait to submit until you're completely ready. But just again, save as you go, just to make sure we don't lose any of the inputs that you're making on the application. And once you're ready, and hopefully by the deadline, make sure that you're clicking submit so we have your application in our system. And the very last slide I have is just a slide with additional resources. So the first one is a step-by-step guide on how to register and link your account. So similarly to what I've covered in my previous slides, it's going to be a PDF version of how to do that. And we also have a recording of how to register and link your organization and your user account. So we also have a recording. And then we have a FAQ, but this is particular for the Cord platform. They're going to be technical questions. So we do have that available. That's the third bullet here. And if there are any other technical questions that we see coming through, we'll go ahead and add them there. And lastly, anything about the program, please do email the DAS grant unit at dir.ca.gov email address. And with that, I think that covers everything I have, so I'll pass it on back to Adele. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. And so again, our website has been updated today with all of these links. So all the hyperlinks here are available on the DAS website. And in addition, the CORD team will be offering 3 different office hours. So if you have technical questions, of course, you can email the DAS grant unit email inbox here, and we'll do our best to get those addressed. But there will also be technical assistance office hours provided by the CORD team leading up to the deadline, so that if you need to get some live help with some technical aspect of the platform, those will be available to you. So all of that is available on the DAS website. We are, in this moment, we are switching from saying email us all your stuff to submit through CORD. So what you will see on the DAS website, on the Erica page today, is a revised solicitation for proposals and an amendment cover sheet. And the only thing that has changed is the method by which we are asking you to submit your proposal, which is through CORD. But for any of you who have already downloaded the templates from our website before today, nothing about the application questions or criteria that they're going to be evaluated on, nothing else has changed. So all of the questions are the same. All the information that we're asking is the same. It's just that we're switching the method by which we are requesting you to provide us with that information. So we on the DAS side are very, very excited to be working on the CORD platform and to have this grant management system. So a lot of gratitude to Michelle and Chris from the CORD team, who have really hustled to get this all set up here for us today. And also really appreciate them in being responsive to you all in the any technical questions that you might have about applying. So as Michelle shared, start early in terms of the application process so that you're sure to work through any kind of like login or technical issues well in advance. And of course, you still have a whole month to get this all sorted, as the deadline is March 12th. So with that, we are going to address the questions that were submitted to us at the DAS grant unit by January 31st. So the first question that we got was, although the Erica grant is state funded, will the new DEI changes on the federal level affect it? The Erica grant is state funded, and it is not impacted in any way by the new DEI changes on the federal level. I will say California continues its commitment to creating a California for all, and this Erica grant is included in that and is unchanged by any of the conversations at the federal level. So this grant proceeds and is unimpacted by any of that. The second question we got was, is the maximum allowable indirect cost rate 15%, or should it be based on a program's negotiated indirect cost rate agreement, which is often referred to as NICRA? So the answer to this is that for all categories of the funding, the indirect expenses are limited to 15% of the total award. The NICRA is a rate that's used with federal grants, and this is state funding, as I just addressed in the last question. Therefore, the NICRA does not apply and is not relevant to this grant. So that blanket 15% limit to indirect expenses applies across the board to the Erica grant. The third question we got is it expected that the child care stipend funds are coming from an organization's cash on hand and then reimbursed, or will funding be provided upfront to cover the cost of providing the child care stipends? So as I outlined, 25% of the total grant amount will be paid upon receipt and approval of the first month's narrative progress report. So again, that will be due 1 month after the contracted start date of the grant, which will be dependent on your particular contract. So when you get your contract finalized, 1 month after that date, we are asking you for a narrative report. And with that approved narrative report, you can invoice for that 25%. And then after that time, there's going to be quarterly reimbursement contingent upon an approved quarterly progress report and its reimbursement of actual costs, which of course cannot commence until the fully contracted start date. And then the final 25% of expenses will be reported, but not reimbursed, since 25% of the grant was paid after that first month's progress report. So once DAS receives an invoice that is approved, it's got all the right pieces on it. Once we say, yep, this invoice is approved, that gets paid within 45 days. So we are hopeful that this overall structure of the funding gives the grantees the funding to operate the childcare funding. And I think you should think about this 25% as like that initial funding amount. And then from there forward, it's reimbursement, but it's not drawing down from the reimbursement of that first 25%. It's just reimbursement so that you have that 25% as sort of the working capital throughout while you are doing your activities and getting activities reimbursed. So we hope that this adjustment of the structure of the funding will be helpful to address this question. All right, question 4. Will organizations be able to carry balances from quarter to quarter, even after requesting reimbursement? For example, if a grantee does not spend the entirety of the first 25% payment within the first quarter of performance, can they request the full second 25% payment the second quarter? So at the risk of repeating myself, 25% of the total grant amount will be paid upon receipt and approval of the first month narrative progress report, which is due 1 month after the contracted start date. Then there's quarterly reimbursement thereafter, contingent upon approved quarterly progress reports and the reimbursement of actual costs, which cannot commence until the contracted start date. The reimbursements are on top of the 25% paid after that receipt and approval of the first month narrative progress report. So therefore, DAS is expecting that at the end of the first quarter, a grantee will report and then invoice for actual expenses for that first quarter, which would be paid in full. So hopefully this addresses that question. Question 5. Separate proposal submissions and narratives are required for each of the 3 scopes of work being pursued: recruitment, childcare, and worksite culture. Is it acceptable in proposal submissions to use the same proposal narrative language for questions where the answers are applicable across the 3 proposal submissions? Example, question 2, geographic regions served. Question 3, industries and occupations served. Excuse me. So all narratives and all responses to questions have to align with the proposal for the grant category. Some parts of the narrative might provide the same information for all grant proposals, but only if those answers are accurate to that category's proposal. All right, question 6. Will organizations who are former ERICA grantees and who met their performance goals receive any bonus or preference points in the evaluation/scoring process? So the evaluation of the grant proposals is looking at that proposal's past performance, which could absolutely include performance in the first round of the ERICA grant. So this would be evaluated under the criteria B in that scoring criteria in the SFP, which is demonstrated history of serving underrepresented populations in construction, which is 30 points of the overall points in the scoring rubric. In addition, former ERICA grantees are only eligible if they have passed their annual review as of December 31st, 2024, and that aspect is evaluated under Section A, which is fulfills the eligibility requirements, which is 5 points. And essentially, you get 0 points on any components within this category, then the whole proposal gets 0 points. So this is the initial eligibility screening. So it has to be an eligible entity type, the lead or collaborating with a registered construction apprenticeship or pre-apprenticeship program as validated with a letter of support and DAS file number and program name. And of course, if it's a former ERICA grantee, had they passed their annual review as of December 31st, 2024. So this is where this aspect is being evaluated and where points can be given for past performance. Question 7, what documentation is required for the apprentice who receives the stipend? So eligible participants are those apprentices or pre-apprentices that are parents or legal guardians to children under the age of 13 or to dependent children with disabilities requiring documented specific care needs. And all eligible participants must have a demonstrated need for childcare or specific care need services. So participants will be asked to provide proof of eligibility and sign a statement of demonstrated need for childcare services. And much like in round 1, we will provide those templates for you. Question 8. Can the $10,000 stipend for apprentices be given upfront or in increments over a certain period? So outlined in the SFP is that there are 3 models of childcare funding: in-house childcare, reimbursement, or stipends. Applicants should indicate which model they plan to utilize. Based on this question, with the stipend model, the program is offering eligible participants a stipend to cover childcare costs. Since this is likely to be a taxable stipend, there is a broader set of eligible costs. However, stipend recipients must all sign an affidavit validating that the stipend is used for eligible childcare costs. DAS will provide a template affidavit for this type of model. Eligible childcare costs in this scenario, so under the stipend model, include daycare or special needs care reimbursement, in-home childcare costs such as nanny, babysitter, au pair, family member, or institutional setting care, such as a child daycare or special needs care services by qualified caregivers. It includes summer or vacation camps, before and after school care, applications, fees, and deposits for, such as requirements for obtaining care, but only if the care is subsequently provided. And finally, enrichment programs and lessons, such as music and sports lessons. In the budget narrative, proposals should explain the planned amount and distribution of childcare stipends or reimbursements. There is not a prescribed structure to the payment of stipends, but a clear and consistent plan should be articulated. All right, question 9. What happens if award money for the stipend cannot all be used? Can it be returned or transferred to another program? So if a grantee expects to not utilize all the funds and they have another partner or program that they would like to work with, they can request an amendment to their contract to add additional partners. Any grant funds not expended during the grant agreement period shall be returned to the state no later than June 30th, 2027. So that is relevant to this round 2. And question 10, many apprentices felt it was too good to be true and were hesitant to participate. Have you considered having testimonials on your website from those who benefited from the first round of the stipend? We would love some of those testimonials, and please send those over to the DAS grant unit email, and we will look into incorporating those. Question 11, if we are self-administering the grant, can overhead and administrative costs be a percentage of the amount received for recruitment and workplace culture? So for all categories of the funding, indirect expenses are limited to 15% of the total award. So those are all of the questions that we received as of that January 31st deadline. Again, as I mentioned, we have taken note of the questions that have come in during this session, and we will review those and work to get those addressed. This session has been recorded, and we will be posting it on the ERICA website. If there's any aspect of what I just talked about that you would like to go back through. And again, thank you to the CORD team for joining us and for helping to get this system set up. We are very, very excited to be using this grant management system for the full next cycle of the ERICA grant. Most importantly, please take note of the deadline. We will not be making exceptions to this. So March 12th, 2025 at noon Pacific time is the deadline for submissions, and all submissions must be done through the CORD platform. We will not be accepting proposals via email. So if you send us an email with a proposal, that is not considered meeting the requirements. The requirements are to submit through CORD. So please be sure to get signed up to that CORD platform, get set up. And again, there are already on the DAS website a number of resources available to you to help navigate the technical assistance part of using the CORD system. There will be CORD office hours to address questions. And while we are no longer taking questions about the grant, the content of the grant itself, we certainly will be keeping an eye out for technical assistance questions related to the CORD program and trying to get you that support that you need. So with that, I'm very happy to wrap a few minutes before the hour. And again, thank you to the CORD team. And I also want to give a big thank you to the DAS funding team, who have really been hustling around a variety of activities, and of course, including the ERICA grant. So thank you to the DAS team behind this. We are very, very excited to be offering this grant to you all, and we're really looking forward to the proposals that are going to be coming our way. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks for all the great work that you're doing out there in the ecosystem, and we're excited to see how this ERICA grant can really have an impact upon representation in the trades. Thank you all.